Hey guys, and welcome back to the Tavern build. I've gone shaky cam for the first part of this just so we can kind of take a tour of where we're at and what we've got left to do. So I'm assuming you guys remember the bottom here. We've got that just about done, although we need to work on the porch. We're going to be putting some wood slats on the porch here, but that'll come later. The upstairs, I have not yet gotten the plastering done on the outside, and I've still got a little bit more woodwork to do on this side. This side's pretty much done with the woodwork, but I got to do all the plastering. I've gotten some of the plastering done on the inside, but you can see I've got a little bit more. But I did glue the walls in, so these walls are now glued in, and a couple of the doors are glued in, like these two here. I glued that one partially open. Not that one. This one. There we go. So you can see how that's kind of partially open there, just to give it a little flavor. Still got to deal with the back wall here, and this little storage area is mostly done, just needs to be plastered up and have some stuff. But what we were talking about working on today is the chimney. So here's I just cut this out of, I think it's 1 3/4 foam that I got from my good buddy Carlo at Let's Build Foam. So I had just cut a strip of that out, the size I wanted. We're going to chop the top off here because that was just scrap, and I don't want the chimney that tall. But anyway, this is just a piece of foam that's going to go in here like this, and we've got this this little shed that's going to go on the back that we haven't built yet, but it's going to slide in there like that and have this little roof coming off. So that piece there we will work on later. Set that aside for now. But the reason I want to do the chimney now is because it's going to be one of the major pieces that's going to kind of hold the top floor and the roof in the right place, because those are going to be removable for play. So the chimney's got, you know, the first floor and the second floor have kind of these spaces for the chimney to sit in. And that's where the fireplace is, that little hole right there. And I've already carved out a hole for the fireplace. Now the sides are a little flimsy, as you can see. This one more so than the other. We're going to want to reinforce that, but we're going to be putting some stuff inside here anyway to line the fireplace, so that's not going to be a terrible problem. So what we want to do is kind of fix the top of this, and then we're going to make this start looking like a chimney. And I think instead of brick, I'm going to do more of a fieldstone type look. So let me get set up with the Steadicam here, get this stuff out of the way, and we'll get to work on this chimney. Alright, so the first step we got to do is just rough cut the foam so that we can get things the size and shape that we wanted. So I figured out how tall I wanted this to be, and ended up being 11.5 inches. So I just measured up 11.5 inches from the bottom and lopped the top off. Straight line, easy cut, no big deal. Now I want to give this thing a little bit of shape. So what I'm doing here is, and let me see if I can get this a little bit in frame so you can see it. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of make this angle in here and then be a little bit thinner at the top. Now this starts above the second level. The second level ends about here, so the roof will be sloping down kind of here. So this angle in will start above the roof. So what I did is I measured down this down about 2.5 inches and a ½ inch in, and then this is down another inch, and just connect the points. And I just went all the way around and did the same thing on the other side and drew in the top, so I know exactly where I'm cutting. And you could use a knife for this, but I am actually going to go down out into the garage and use my hot wire table, because that just makes my life faster and easier. So anyway, gonna get this cut out and we'll be back. Alright, so I've got this cut now, and Since this is going to be a fieldstone chimney, we're going to take just a piece of sandpaper and kind of sand down the edges. Going to do, I mean, real basic light sanding, but we just don't want it to be too square because fieldstone is not square. So I'm going to go ahead through and just round off all the edges here. You don't need to listen to me scraping on styrofoam because I'm pretty sure that sound is annoying to most people, including me. So I'll get that done and then we'll be back for the next step. Alright, so it's all sanded down. The good news is the sanding on this is pretty easy. It only took me like, you know, a minute and a half to sand these corners off. The bad news is it takes about half an hour to clean up all the mess from this. So, you know, keep that in mind as to where you're sanding. Also, I'd highly recommend getting one of those, some of those Swiffer duster refill things. They're really good for cleaning up this styrofoam mess because they work by static, and as you all know who have worked with this styrofoam, it's very staticky. So anyway, next step is we're just going to take our dull pencil here and start drawing our field stones. Press kind of hard just to get the indentations in there, but just draw away. Pick your favorite pattern. Doesn't have to be perfect. There can be some holes, because if any of you have ever seen fieldstone before, you'll know that it's put together and then they put little dirt and rocks and little things inside of it to keep it together, and it doesn't come out perfect. So they try to get it as close as they can, and then they just fill in the rest with little rocks and dirt and whatever they can get. So just take your dull pencil, draw yourself a pattern that you like, and just fill up the whole thing. Now this is going to take a while. It's a little tedious. Don't worry about if you rip the foam a little bit. That's okay, like I just did there. That just means you got a kind of a hole there in your fieldstone, but when we paint it all, that's actually going to look pretty good. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw all this on. I got to do the whole chimney, so it's going to take a while. And you don't need to sit there and watch me draw, but I will draw this stuff on and then we'll be back for the next part. Okay, we're back, and I've got all this carved in here. This took a while, quite a while, but I just you know, sat in front of an episode of my favorite show on Netflix and carved away. So that's all done. I can't even really see what's going to happen here, but that'll get fixed up. Now once you're done carving all this stuff, you're probably going to have some pieces, so you just want to rub over it real good like this and make sure you got any loose pieces off. Then I've just taken some toothpicks, stuck them in here, and stuck it in a scrap piece of wood, or foam, yeah, wood, so that I have something to paint on, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to goop this. So I've just made up a batch of really thin Kamloopian goop, except I did everything except I left out the caulk, because this piece doesn't really require that. So basically white glue, water, plaster Paris, and some black paint all mixed up and kind of thin, because we don't want to lose too much of the detail in here. So we are just going to slop this on here and let it dry, and then we will slop on another coat for anything that we missed, and that will be it. Now one other thing I'm going to do that I've just forgotten to do before I do too much slopping on is, you'll see in the top I've kind of made this so that it there's a hole there. I'm going to go ahead and dig some of this out so that it gives the appearance of being an empty chimney. So let me do that real quick. We'll be right back. Okay, there we go. That's better. So you can see I just hollowed that out. Just took a knife and a pair of needle nose pliers and just plucked out a bunch. It doesn't have to be pretty on the inside. It's pretty hideous. I don't know how well that turns out on camera, but it's kind of a mess in there. But it doesn't matter, because we're going to be putting some smoke coming out of the top of this, and it's just going to be black down in there, so it nobody's going to see it anyway. We just want kind of the illusion that it's hollowed out. So I'm just going to be slopping on a couple coats of this goop to give it some strength and a base coat. And you will see as soon as this stuff starts drying, you're going to see that you're going to miss some pink spots. So that's what the second coat will be for. You can also already see that starting to happen. And we want this stuff pretty thin, so you're going to want multiple coats because we don't want to obscure the detail of all the rocks we just finished putting in there. So make sure you make this pretty thin and do multiple coats, even 3 if you need to. So I'm going to put a couple coats on this, let it dry, and then we will get back to paint it up. Okay, we're back with getting this done. So I put 2 coats of that goop on there, and it actually comes out, even though we put black paint in it, it actually comes out dark gray because it's got that white plaster in it. So once I got those 2 coats on and let it dry, then I just put a black wash on it just to darken it up, especially for the cracks. And so now we got to paint it. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with this, though it's going to be painstaking. We're going to paint it, you know, the individual stones several different colors. So what I've got here is some barn red, some lighter gray, some darker gray, brick red, terracotta, and raw umber. So we get some browns in there. So we're gonna, because there's a lot of reds and browns in the structure itself, we're gonna go ahead and do some reds and browns in this. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually put them on there fairly lightly because we don't want them to be stark colors. So we're going to water them down a bit and then just paint the individual stones. So let's start with the terracotta. We're just going to get this watered down pretty good. Oh, sorry. This tripod is a little bit in my way, but I'm trying to give you guys the best view I can. Now we don't want a lot of paint on our brush because we don't want this stuff to seep into the cracks. We still want the shadow there. So we're just going to use a little bit, kind of wipe it off, and then start just picking out individual stones and painting it on. So just random stones and paint the color on there. And try not to get it too blotchy, but it doesn't, you don't want it to be really uniform either. Alright, so we'll just be doing that all the way through. I'm just going to move through the different colors and just pick out random stones. You don't need to sit here and watch me paint every little stone. And then we'll come back, take a look once that's dried and see how it looks, because I've never actually done this before. But we'll see how it looks and see what adjustments we need to make. So, back for you guys in just a second. For me, it'll be a couple hours. Okay, so first thing I've discovered is that I watered the paint down too much. And you can see like I've painted this one, but you can barely see that there's anything on there. Same with this. After it dried, it was so thin that it almost put no color. So what I did is I added a little more paint. So now I've got about 50-50 mixture of paint and water, and that seems to be working a little better. So I'm going to follow that recipe through and go back over the ones that I've already painted and get the colors a little more bright, because we are going to wash over this when we're done, so it'll mute them down a bit. I just didn't want to start with, you know, bright orange. That would look goofy. So we're going to just kind of dull these down with about 50-50 water. That'll let some of the black come through and darken these colors up. So I'll continue on with that. That's my first big discovery of this, and then I'll be back. Alright, so there we go. We've got it all painted up. Just all different colors all over the place. Grays and oranges and reds and browns, and you know, towards the end there I just started dipping my brush in all the different colors and mixing them together and dabbing a few on here and there. So I've got a nice variation of color, but it's not a lot of real stark contrast, but it's enough to give this chimney a little bit of life and punch. So I'm actually, now that I'm looking at it in real life, and I don't know how well this is coming across in the light on the camera, but I'm not even going to wash over this because I was fairly careful and I just painted the faces of each of the stones. So there's still a lot of good definition and shadow in there, and because it was watered down, they actually did a fairly decent job of highlighting themselves. So I'm going to call this done. Now, I didn't do anything in here because we're going to put a little bit of we're going to simulate a fire in here and dress this up a bit. This is going to get glued in, so this part won't even be showing, nor will a lot of this, but I painted it anyway. But I'm not going to glue it in yet because I want to do some work on this, and then when we get to the final details, we're going to put some smoke coming out of the chimney. So I didn't paint inside here either, I just left it black. But there we go, chimney done. And next time, I'm not sure what we'll be working on, but we'll figure something out. Until then, have a good one.